women are the only target.
For all the cancers, in fact, the one that we should not even get is the cervical cancer, because it moves from one stage a long time before another stage. There's a long latency period before the cancer even occurs.
Cervical cancer humiliates its victims.
I never imagined cancer could cross my path one day. From what I am going through, I can tell you it is better to commit suicide. So you die fast than waiting for this cancer to hit you. It is a bad disease.
You look at our waiting area, it can accommodate about 100 people. But if a patient who has an offensive discharge, one of them is sitting there, you cannot. The whole place is offensive.
It eventually kills the unlucky ones.
We lose about 1,500 women to cervical cancer every year. There hasn't been any presidential inquiry or governmental inquiry into it. There has never been any white paper issued on it. But these are women who are dying silently.
It leaves families poor, shattered, and scattered. But a little vigilance and early screening can spare our women all this hassle and pain.
For the cervical cancer patients, what I can say, if you see 100 of them, about 80 would have come in for an advanced stage. And by that I mean they come in at a time when they are no more curable.
My name is Seth Kwame Boateng. Today I talk about the cervix and how we can save it from crisis. Stay with me.
It can kill you.
Here are stories of survival, pain, misery, and death. Deaths which could have been prevented. Ghana is on a mission to making childbirth a blessing and not a curse. That is, no woman should die giving birth.
It is not a curse to be a mother. It's a blessing. It's a joy that you have a baby. And we are doing everything possible for such a mother not to be afraid to get pregnant. And we in the health sector will make sure that you have safe delivery so that you and your baby are alive.
Yet, after these women have been saved at the point of delivery, a few years later, they are killed by a totally preventable disease, rendering their children orphans.
Why do we give up hope on these same young women soon after they have completed their childbearing? Because the effort that we put into safeguarding women during pregnancy and childbirth, if we can continue that same effort a few years down the line to focus on prevention of death from cervical cancer, we would be doing a lot more for these women.
The lives of Ghanaian women in their prime are being snuffed out in droves.
In this country, there are close to about 3,000 cervical cancer cases every year. And nearly half of them will die from the condition within the year, simply because they come late. So by extrapolation, you can say that we're probably losing about 1,500 women to cervical cancer every year.
This is more than double the number of women who die from pregnancy and pregnancy-related complications. The month of January, which is Cervical Cancer Awareness Month, brings back painful, bitter, and unpleasant memories, especially for families that lost a mother, sister, or daughter to cervical cancer.
Life wasn't like mom is going to die. It didn't even look like that. It just looked like it's a condition, a situation that is going to take care of itself and then pass, and then we move on with lives.
Her name is Gladys Oredu, a renowned broadcaster. Her 52-year-old mother died of cervical cancer some 19 years ago. This tragic incident Gladys experienced at age 21 completely changed her life. She has since not been the same.
As a young woman growing up, If I had a mother, I'm sure there are certain mistakes I wouldn't have made. If I had a mother, I'm sure there are some challenges I'm going through that she would have been handy. If I had my mother, I am so sure that situations I find myself in currently may not have been, even if they have been. I'm sure she'll play that role that won't place such burden on me.
Gladys saw the pain it caused to not only her mom, but the entire family as well.
I witnessed her go through pain, and it wasn't a comfortable experience at all. Yeah, it wasn't comfortable. She would scream and you are helpless. She's in pain, you are helpless, there's nothing you can do to help except to just stand and give words of encouragement. She had the swollen legs and they looked darker. Her legs looked darker than the usual complexion. And she said they hurt. So there were a few times that she'll be lying down and she'll be moaning in pain. You know, she would, sometimes she actually she really screams. So she had to survive on painkillers as well. And I remember when she had to turn to be cleaned up, she was, every part of her body was hurt. So, me standing on her, you know, she was screaming, Ajay, that kind of thing. I'll stop. She wants to do it herself. It was difficult.
A first surgery was done to remove her cervix, womb and other organs in an attempt to halt the spread of the cancer. But after a while, the cancer degenerated and claimed her life. A mere recall of the last days of her mom brings back painful memories.
She had actually asked my dad to pray, and my dad passed it on to my cousin. And when he was praying at the point, I got furious. I got angry because my mom was going. Yeah. So I held my mom's hand and she was going. And I kept waking her up. I kept calling her back. At a point, I was chatting with her and sharing a joke, and she was laughing. But my soul was crying because the joke I was sharing was just to hold her. I had seen her go. And that acceptance wasn't coming easily.
And she died. At the Komfuanochi Teaching Hospital, gynecologist Dr. Adua Piakubi walks me through the various stages.
When you get the organism that causes cervical cancer, that is the HPV, it causes a pre-malignant lesion. And that pre-malignant lesion takes about 10 to 30 years before it gets to the invasive state. When you get the organism gets to the cervix, and then there will be changes on the cervix. And that changes is called the pre-malignant lesion. The pre-malignant lesion will lead to the cancer, the cervical cancer proper. It's going to take about 10 to 30 years for it to change to the cervical cancer. So when we are able to get them in the pre-malignant state, you'll be able to cure the disease.
Dr. Promise Sefoka, General Secretary of the Society of Obstetricians and Gynecologists of Ghana, is particularly worried about how this disease continues to kill women.
Cervical cancer, in about 99.7% of cases, is preventable because it has been linked to that sexually transmitted infection we call human papillomavirus. And so, contracting human papillomavirus through unprotected sex, multiple sexual partners, smoking, other immune suppression, like those who do a lot of steroids for various reasons. We haven't seen that those who bleach, some of the things, the steroids get into the system and cumulatively have some effect in suppressing immunity. Quite apart from the risk of causing skin cancer, it has so many other deleterious effects on health.
There are, however, those who have survived the disease. They weren't just lucky. They did something more. They detected the disease early. Janet Enning is one of those who have been on that lonely, enduring path of battling cervical cancer. She is 73 years old. I have come to her house at Salt Pond in the Central Region to speak with her. Auntie Janet is a retired nurse. She's excited to be alive today to share her story. The condition started in 2016, a few days after she panicked over the sudden collapse of her daughter.
I was cooking. Then I felt some unusual, I thought it's a bleeding, not knowing it's not a bleeding. So I thought because of what happened, say, hey, this bleeding from where? So I went inside. What I saw was a heavy discharge. I thought it was stopped. For 5 days, it was not stopped.
Auntie Janet did the right thing. She didn't hesitate seeking medical attention at the Konfonochi Teaching Hospital.
When they passed the speculum and the teaching forceps, I think they saw blood. And they take some specimen from and they made me understand that I should go, but the result will come. I came. About 10 months, my child called me, Mama, the result has come. She was not telling me the truth. This thing is very, very fine. I say you. Later, she felt she has to tell me the correct thing. She told me, let me tell you point blank that you will come for an, what do I call it, operation. Hey, operation. And I think all your uterus will be removed. I say, hey, are you going to bring forth again? I said, no, I'm not going to bring forth. But, in fact, I was afraid.
So she agreed for her uterus to be removed to save her life. Though Auntie Janet is better now, she has still not come to terms as to how she had the disease, though she has not been sexually active for many years. But Dr. Thomas Kone, obstetric gynecologic oncologist, says there is a possible explanation.
The patient who has never had sexual intercourse, we don't, I would say generally, expect to have cervical cancer. And this latency period that I talked about, for some patients from the pre-cancer to the cancer may take 20 years. For some patients, up to 25 years. There are few patients where that latency period is about 5 years, but on the average about 10 years, which gives us that window period to be able to catch them when the pre-cancer has not developed into cancer. So what it means is that, yes, at the point that the old lady will know that she has cancer, most often it will be advanced.
But unlike Auntie Janet, who sought early medical care, there are some who delayed even after the symptoms fully manifested. On the outskirts of Konongo in the Asante Achim district of the Ashanti region, I meet one of them, Agnes Dufie, as she prefers to be called.
I didn't know it was cancer. All I know is that I saw some watery discharge. After some time, I started bleeding. I discussed with a nurse who advised me to see a doctor.
Agnes is a 41-year-old mother of 3. It rather took her about 2 months to seek medical attention. Later, when she finally did, it was confirmed after thorough investigations Agnes might have acquired the disease over 20 years ago.
First match, and I'm surgery. I surgery.
The surgery was done on 1st March. The doctors were those who encouraged me to opt for the surgery because it was not that dangerous.
Nanka said, "Nay, cancer, say, nay, do never want Koran. I'm active. Me call you,
and that I would be better after. It has rather gotten worse after the surgery.
If it's last week, and say I'm not to say
my womb has been removed, but I can tell you I was more active before the surgery. Now it is not easy for me.
Coincidentally, Agnes was 4 months pregnant when the cancer fully manifested, and this burdened doctors who were providing care. Dr. Thomas Coney, leader of her medical team, said securing the pregnancy was another priority for them.
For her, she will be perhaps the first patient to have cervical cancer diagnosed early in the pregnancy, and we had to let her go to the 9 months, and then we took that baby out. Perhaps she will be the first patient in Ghana. But she will not be the first patient who has cervical cancer and got pregnant. We go in, take the baby out through cesarean section because we can't allow her to deliver through the vagina because there is disease on the cervix. So we take out the baby, and then we do the treatment, the surgical treatment for stage 1 disease, and that is what we call the radical hysterectomy or the Vertimes hysterectomy. It is removal of the whole womb, removal of the cervix, removal of the upper 2-3 centimeters of the vagina, and we remove it to the extent that we don't want to leave any disease at all.
Her cancer had reached stage 1 by the time Agnes reported. It had not really eaten into her body. She is lucky she somehow reported early, but not as early as doctors would have wished. Cancer patients like Agnes become vulnerable and become dependent on their carers. In their vulnerability, they accept without questioning suggestions from their caregivers, and that also contributes to the delay. At the oncology unit of the Konfanoshi Teaching Hospital, 66-year-old Yao Buama, whose wife is battling cervical cancer, confirms this. They never sought medical attention until after 5 years.
We
concluded it was a spiritual disease, so I sent her to a prayer camp twice, yet she didn't get better. They kept taking money from us. I was so worried, so I took her to a Muslim traditional healer. Still, her condition was deteriorating. Observing the pain she was going through, especially at night, I then decided to take her to hospital.
Yabuama, his wife, and their 4 children now rely on family and friends for their upkeep. He has sold their large cocoa farms and other properties to help save the life of his dear wife. Yabuama is not ready to lose her.
I am afraid my wife will die and I will not see her again. I rather lose my investment than to lose my wife. If God gives me strength, at least I can work and have them back. My concern was to just look for someone to buy them. So I eventually got a buyer, and that gave me some money to cater for her treatment. But it's finished in no time, so I had to sell my plot of land too. Now, that money has also finished. Friends and well wishers are those supporting us with some token.
His 60-year-old wife, Yafufie, still cannot believe she is battling a disease she had long thought was far from her.
I had no idea what cancer was all about. I didn't know it could attack the uterus and the stomach. All I knew about it was that it attacks only the leg. I wept when I was told it was cancer, which I knew kills.
At the Konfonochi Teaching Hospital, gynecologist Dr. Edu Apiakubi notes the high illiteracy about the disease is not the only reason patients like Yafo fear delay in seeking help.
Most of them are due to one, ignorance of the disease. They don't even know the disease exists. And then the other one is lack of education, illiteracy. They don't even know anything about the disease. And then they don't know where to send the problems to. That's why most of them resort to these pastors, churches, and all those things. And then the other one, to poverty. The patient is at the patient doesn't have a lot of money, he doesn't know where to go and all that.
When Yafofie was experiencing frequent discharge with intermittent bleeding, she assumed she was experiencing another phase of menopause. Because it was painless, it reinforced her conviction to treat it lightly. She, however, became alarmed when she realized she was growing lean.
I used to be plumpy with well-endowed back. I had a lot of flesh around my neck, unlike the bones you see now. I never imagined cancer could cross my path one day. From what I am going through, I can tell you it is better to commit suicide, so you die fast, than waiting for this cancer to hit you. It is a bad disease.
Some cancer cells grow very fast. Growth requires a lot of nutrients. So when you eat, much of these nutrients are taken to feed the cancer cells. And then the normal cells are probably deprived of what is due them, so they tend to lose weight. So that is one factor. Sometimes on account of the disease, they are depressed, they don't have appetite, they don't eat well. That could also be a factor. Sometimes it is on account of the treatment we are giving them. It takes their appetite away, so they can lose weight. But once you treat them and they go into remission, in other words, you treat them to a point where you don't have any evidence of disease in them, then the appetite returns, and sometimes they regain their weight. For the cervical cancer patients, what I can say, if you see 100 of them, about 80 would have come in for an advanced stage. And by that I mean they come in at a time when they are no more curable. So that is the biggest challenge we are facing. It is not only to do with the ignorance of the people, but it's also to do sometimes even with our own people who might have seen them early, but who didn't have the suspicion that they're probably dealing with the cancer. And also for the fact that somebody has a complaint, so long as there's no pain, he thinks he's fine. And he only comes in when he has pain. But for cancer, if people have cancer and they come in with pain, then you know it's already advanced.
Yafofie's condition has reached an advanced stage and the clock is ticking fast. Medically, she cannot be cured. As doctors say, they can only provide her with drugs that could improve the quality of her life as long as she lives. Cervical cancer has denied the loving, bubbly Yafofie her joy and has raised a giant barrier between her and her friends. She's unable to mingle with anyone outside her nuclear family for a reason best explained by Dr. Sebonsu.
Sometimes they have such an offensive discharge.
Why that?
Well, it's a growth. And what happens is sometimes the growth outstrips the supply, the blood supply. So it's like it's growing faster than the blood supply, developing the supply. So with time, some of the tissue will die off. And then they have to be shed away. And that is quite offensive. Okay, so it's all to do with the pathology of the disease. If you're not getting food to eat, you die. If you die, we don't bury you. you start to smell. So because cancer cells grow very fast, okay, they get their nutrient from the blood vessels. So if new vessel doesn't develop in the area, then the tissue that grow around that area will die off, they'll be sloughed off, and they'll come out in the form of discharge, and that is very offensive. If you have a family of 4, 5 who shares a room, and then somebody has such an offensive discharge, you look at our waiting area, it can accommodate about 100 people. But if a patient who has an offensive discharge, one of them is sitting there, you cannot. The whole place is offensive, okay? So it does affect their social life because they cannot, be in gatherings. It's very difficult for them to share rooms with their spouses.